good to know. So moving on, now this is going to be more about you and your experience over the last 18 months or so. What have been, if you could tell us, what have been some of your aha moments, your epiphanies that you've had over the course of this time, whether it's with cancer, whether it's just in the community engagement center that you work in? What have any aha moments, or that's fantastic, or oh my God, that's awful? What have you experienced?
There have been so many aha moments, and I think there are still probably more to come. I think the biggest one / the first one that I had was about how having the community participate in the delivery of services shifts the community's role and fuels, I think, better reach for public health departments, academic institutions, community engagement programs. We within Umoja, people see us as service provider because we're out and we're doing pop-ups, and really led the way in popping up in places that were very non-traditional, but that were places where we knew that we would be able to reach Black and African-American people. But the reality is we have a meeting every week, and we've been doing that for over a year, and the public is invited. Everything we share there is shared out publicly, all the slides. We try to post the videos. We're not hiding anything. It's just more a matter of manpower of getting some of the videos edited and posted. But what I realized, in the course of doing that is that people are learning about COVID in a very organic way. They're not being lectured to. They're not being told what they absolutely have to do. And we provide a space where people can ask questions. I've had other academicians or kind of traditional folks watch our videos and say, it's incredible how everybody's talking, but you still finish on time. And it's people are not used to allowing the community a space to have a dialogue versus just doing the didactic, lecture story. The other thing is when we are out at the pop-ups, what I was observing was just because we had to set them up with COVID safety in mind, like the line flow and the spacing of people, and having 2 lanes of traffic and having a one-way in and one-way out rather than people having to cross because we were initially doing testing. People who were there in the morning to set up the site, which were generally the big burly dudes who were part of the crew. I mean, there are lots of women too, but a lot of men participating in that piece. Like they weren't just setting up, they were actually learning about COVID. And it just really made me realize that, the way we have been doing community engagement work to try to increase screening and early detection in cancer and educating people has an edge to it that is almost slightly condescending. It doesn't invite the participant, the person, to be part of the solution. It sort of feels like we're just bringing all the solutions and you've got all the problems. And what we realized in doing the work that we do in COVID is that the community has so many solutions that we fail to see because we're always looking for what's wrong. And that means we fail to leverage them. And so I think after doing what we do with Umoja and using this model of community serving community for us, by us activities, that I'm not sure I'll be able to go back to the traditional way that we used to do community engagement around cancer. And if you look at how disparities have progressed over time, they're not getting better. Mm-hmm. Some of them are getting worse. And so that suggests to me that we might be doing it wrong. And I think one of the things that we've learned through how we're doing Umoja Health and that Umoja Health model and the hyperlocal model is that there's a different pathway. And I think that at the end of it, there are better outcomes. I think that's been the biggest thing. And I guess one other thing that has just been a pleasant surprise and very valuable, and I think probably the most impactful part of Umoja Health, which is the number of people who have transformed their lives by being part of what we're doing, by being committed to this mission to uplift the health of the African American community. I had several men who were kind of not really fully employed, maybe we're doing gig economy kind of jobs, say, you know, this is the most meaningful work I've ever done. And one has started medical assistant school. And so because we realized, like, look at who we're needing right now. We're needing people to give vaccines. We're needing people to collect nasal swab samples. We're needing medical assistants. And so that job and that level and kind of a job is going to be in demand everywhere, anywhere. Like, that's employable all over the country. So he went on to, he's doing medical assistant school. And then we've got a handful of our volunteers who are off to medical school, maybe 5 or 6 of them, and they are all writing their essays about working with Umoja. And what they're seeing, I think, is laying a foundation for a new kind of provider who sees the community not as other, not as different from themselves, but just as another community member. And that's, I think that speaks to a humility that is missing from how we deliver care in this country, generally in traditional kind of settings. So I'm really excited about the impact of that potential change. And we also have an summer intern program where we're trying to prepare young people who want to go into medicine for what they might face as a provider of color, so that they're not surprised, and so that they understand the impact of structural racism. Because if you don't understand that, you can't really dismantle it when you get to a position where you have that opportunity. So those are the things I think have been real blessings coming out of this pandemic, if you can even speak of blessings coming out of the pandemic.
I think whenever you learn something that strives for the better, it feels good. Like you can actually use it to move the needle.
Yeah.
So picking up on what you said about the summer intern program, can you give us some insight into what the features are to get young people into healthcare, or whether they become a healthcare provider, support for the system itself?
That's right.
What types of, what are the criteria? What are the things you think are important for such a summer intern program?
Well, so for the first summer, we received funding from the Life Sciences Cares Foundation, and they are a group of biotech and bioscience and life science companies who really want to foster a diverse next generation of not just healthcare providers and public health practitioners, but also scientists and folks in STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math. And so this summer had 5 students who were either headed to college or were in college. So the range went from freshmen all the way to seniors. And those were folks we had quick access to because we were putting the program together so quickly. Again, another opportunity that emerged out of COVID. The Life Sciences Cares approached me wanting to support the direct delivery of service. And I said, what we need is a pipeline program, and we need to start training the next generation of folks so that we don't end up with the kinds of disparities that everybody's saying, oh, we don't have any ideas and we need to build trust and all that, but we don't have the right voices around the table. So I said, we got to actually address that, like take advantage of this time. So it was really quick. We had 5 of them. Next summer, we'll have 10. And the features of the program and the partners are Life Sciences Cares is funding, and they're providing some other support I'll talk about in a second. And then the partners, the important partners are Marcus Foster Educational Institute here in Alameda County, which is behind the Oakland Unified School District's Black Male Achievement Programs. They really support people to apply for financial aid, think about going to college, and then during the summer kind of keep them warmed up and committed to that next step. And then Roots Community Health Center, which is a series of clinics in San Jose and mostly in Oakland that takes care of the African community specifically and explicitly, with different models of, job skills, training, companies that they own where they're hiring people and giving them job skills and giving them a boost, mental health, violence prevention, de-escalation, and just a variety of things beyond direct care. So those are the partners involved. And what we're offering the students is, number one, a curriculum in embedded and embracing and trying to raise to visibility structural racism and how structural racism impacts on the health of Black and Brown communities. And then we also provided for them whatever they said they were interested in. So this year they wanted to hear from public health professors, and they wanted to hear from physicians, and then they wanted to hear from a panel that effectively runs all of Roots Clinic. So not just clinicians, but the people involved with IT on the back end, the computer systems, quality improvement and data collection, the front end and reception. So the supporting structures around healthcare. And had we had more time, we probably would have brought in X-ray technicians and phlebotomists and other people who are working in this space that, as I mentioned before, with the medical assistant piece, really never goes down, never declines as a place where people are looking to be hired. So those are always employable skills to be in the healthcare setting. So they got the lecture series, they got several panels of just really radical physicians who are thinking outside the box and crafting practices outside the box in order to meet the needs of the populations that they really want to effectively serve. The real perks of the program is that Life Sciences Cares will provide mentorship. So the 5 got assigned mentors from the life sciences industry who will be with them for the next 3 years, supporting them to through college. Next summer, our first 5 interns will have the opportunity to work in a life sciences cares industry company with an internship that is set up by Life Sciences Cares. There was a stipend, there's a computer, and then there's just ongoing support. So I spoke with 2 of our interns just last week, just to check in and see how things were going with the transition back into college. So they get that direct mentorship. And if it looks like, one needs support or tutoring or mentoring that would potentially cost money, there are ways that we can take that out of the budget to continue to support them through the process. And one last thing they did, they participated in a group project that is around leadership, skills building, problem solving, continuous quality improvement, and really looking at structural issues to take on. And our students wanted to take on homelessness in the COVID pandemic, with the idea that that some people really had to work and they may not have had adequate place to shelter in place. And yet that was the mandate to mitigate the pandemic, and just making the connection of how poverty and unstable housing actually could contribute to furthering the pandemic, and really seeing the connections between the structural and the health outcomes that we observe. So next year we'll have 10 interns. We hope the following year to have 25. And then we'll see in several years. And I know it takes a long time because I'm a product of a number of those pipeline programs, to really see the impact of what we're the gifts I feel like that we are providing for these students.
That is so awesome, Dr. Rhoads. I wish I was young again. I would sign up. Fantastic work. So this has been a wonderful conversation. It has been very fruitful for me, and I know that those who will be watching this will enjoy it. So what I will do for those who watch the video is put up your community engagement site and
Okay.
also give them an inside look. I looked at your website, and so they can see what Emoja is doing and how that can be replicated. Why not? Let's do it. Let's push the envelope. It's time for us to
Absolutely.
talk about our health. Thank you so much, Dr. Rhoads, for having this conversation, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Have a good one.